Today we are going to try to figure out how different sweeteners affect the rate of cellular respiration. So I've got two different kinds of sweeteners. I've got sugar, which is a natural sweetener, and then I've got an artificial sweetener. We're actually using sucralose. And so for our bodies, when we go through cellular respiration, we release carbon dioxide and water. Those are the outputs. For yeast, which is what we're going to be using today, this is a unicellular organism, and they, when they do cellular respiration, they do anaerobic respiration, and so, which doesn't require the oxygen that we need. So when they are creating energy through fermentation, they have different outputs, and their outputs is carbon dioxide and ethanol. So we're going to be looking at the cellularization rate of yeast in these two different food sources. Okay, so to start, we're going to I've got 50 milliliters of water in each of those. Let's see if I can tilt these a little more. Okay, I'll give each one a teaspoon of their sweetener. So just like we use glucose or a sugar for our fuel for cellular respiration, the yeast do as well. But we're going to see, can they use artificial sweetener in lieu of a glucose or sucrose sugar. So now I'm going to add in my yeast. So I'm going to do a half a teaspoon in each of them. Then I'm going to put a balloon on each of those. This is to help us capture the carbon dioxide gas. And so before I kind of mix those up, I'm actually going to do our starting. So we're going to be looking at how the circumference of these balloons changes. So the circumference is the distance around a circle. Well, obviously this is a flattened circle right now because there's no carbon dioxide that has been released yet. And so when you do this, you're going to be measuring distance around the balloon. We'll do it in centimeters. And so my distance around the balloon is 13. So on your papers, when you are to make your data table, you need to have your starting time, have the balloons, and they're going to both be the same. They both have a starting circumference of 13 centimeters. Now, let me go ahead and mix these. Flasks are used for mixing things. I used a graduated cylinder to measure out the water. Okay, I think those look pretty mixed. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to set a 5-minute timer, and then we're going to measure the circumference of our balloons to see if we've had any change. And then we're going to do the same thing after 10 minutes and after 15 minutes. So on your paper, on step F, it says create a data table to record your observations. You will need to measure the diameter of the balloons after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and 15 minutes. You also need to include that starting or 0 minutes time. So think about what data you need in the data table, and how you can organize it. It does need to be in a table, but I want you guys to try to problem solve how you would make that table. And we'll check back in 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, so we're going to check the circumference. Just by looking at it, you'll notice that there's a lot more bubbles, which means there's more gas being released from the sugar than the artificial sugar, or the artificial sweetener. So let's okay, this really should be done with 2 people to kind of get it more accurate. Okay. So for the artificial, it's still at 13. the sugar. It feels a little more inflated. The artificial one was a little bit. This one seems to be a little bit more. All right, so this one is at 14 centimeters circumference. So make sure you add those to your data table. We'll continue with that timer. Okay, so now we're at the 10-minute mark. You can see our sugar, the bubbles have, it's a little bit higher, it's right here, whereas the artificial is still a little bit lower. So we're releasing a little bit more gas in the sugar than we are the artificial. The artificial is increasing, you can see, it's just not as much. So starting with the artificial. Okay. We're now at 14 centimeters for the artificial. And then the sugar. It's about 15 centimeters. 15 centimeters of the sugar. So we've got one last 5-minute timer. Okay, we're going to do our last measurement. So again, starting, so now the artificial has popped up. You can see it's also increasing bubbles, but the sugar is still doing more. Okay. Artificial is at 16. And sugar is at 18. So now after you have that data, add that data into your data table, use that data table to create a graph. So think about what's the independent variables, what's the dependent variables, and then set up your graph. If you are absent and you are struggling, I want you to at least attempt it, and then when you get back, come talk to me and I can help. I can look over it before you turn it in, see if you need to make any corrections.